Okay, guys, so I am a big Jordan Peterson fan, and this might be the only video I have found something to disagree with him on. So let's review Jordan Peterson's video, Advice for Young Men in Their 20s. And then I will share my top 2 tidbits of advice for young men in their 20s and younger. Welcome to Just the Tip Tuesday. So in the clip from Dr. Jordan Peterson's YouTube channel, his daughter Michaela asks him what advice he'd give to young men in their 20s. And the first bit of advice I do agree with. He says, young men should make a plan, figure out your interests, be disciplined about something, allow yourself to believe you have something to contribute to the world, and don't be afraid to take on responsibility. I agree. He says responsibility is what sustains you in life. I know it sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But just let's see what he says about it. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that responsibility does sustain you, and it's something that you do need to have. But you might be thinking, but Anna, what if I don't know what I like? What if I don't have any skills? What if I'm not good at anything? Stick with me, I've got a solution for you. In the meantime, Peterson goes on to say that while you don't want to take on too much responsibility, you also don't want to take on too little responsibility. I agree. Now here's the part where we beg to differ. He says, a lot of young men are afraid of commitment in relationships, in an intimate relationship, because they are afraid that it will interfere with their pursuit of and achievement of personal goals. And he says that's not the case. I say it is a little bit the case. So of course I do agree that you'll feel better about yourself and your life when you find something to take responsibility for. And essentially you want to take responsibility for everything you possibly can. That's the only place you have control in life, is with what you can do and what you can think about the experiences you have in life and things that are happening to you in life. Because if you don't take responsibility towards especially a purpose in life, maybe achieving those goals, whether it is family or it is a relationship or it is a career and those other goals that are about you and not someone else, which I'm going to give you in my top 2 tips why I think that it's more important for you to focus on yourself and your goals rather than pursuing necessarily a relationship. We'll get to that in a minute. But essentially, if you don't have purpose, you're going to slide into bitterness, potentially victimhood, and even depression. And while I understand young men want to be with women, even if they aren't particularly ready to settle down immediately, there are a lot of young men who are pursuing the idea of having a relationship early on in life. But I think you need to be especially cautious of committed intimate relationships, especially in today's dating climate. Again, more on that in a moment when I give you my top 2 tips for young men in their 20s. In the meantime, Dr. Peterson says that he thinks it's the best thing for you to do to find and maintain a long-term relationship that produces children. He says that's life. And I do agree that that's life, but I think in today's climate, you're better off to be maybe a man possibly in his late 20s to consider that, but probably more aptly in your 30s or possibly even 40s. He says that there's hardly a more meaningful responsibility than marriage and family. And I think in the big picture it is, but not necessarily for young men in their 20s. And he does acknowledge that this isn't necessarily the best path for every young man in his 20s. But he does say that for him, even though he's accomplished a lot in his life and his career, the things that have given him the most value and joy has been his wife and his family. He says, don't be afraid of that, or do be afraid, but don't let it stop you. Now, I have no doubt that this is the case for Dr. Jordan Peterson and other men who have managed to escape divorce in his generation, but I don't think it's necessarily the best thing for young men in their 20s. There are a lot of factors in the dating world today that young men in their 20s didn't have to face in previous generations. Times really have changed. Now, that's not to say that if you're a man in his 20s, you shouldn't find that one special person that you want to share your life with. I mean, I'm all for that. That's what my channel is about. It's about you settling down without settling. Unfortunately, if you're a man in your 20s, there are a lot more settling options out there than there ever have been before. More on that in a minute. But the good news as a man is that you've got time on your side. Men's market value, and I know you don't like it when I say this, but your attractiveness quotient has the opportunity and potential to increase as you get older, unlike most women. Most women's market value tends to decrease after a certain point, especially if she wants to have children, or especially if the man she meets wants to have children. That's just reality. Okay, so with that said, here's my top 2 tips for men in their 20s. 1, and this has to do with dating and relationships. You don't have to be established in a particular career, but you do have to have a plan, know what direction you're going in, and be actively taking steps toward it. Whether you're in a trade school, or you're in uni or college, or you are already in a company that you plan on leveling up in or getting promoted in, I think you need to make that kind of plan, at least have a direction before you should be ready to commit to a lifelong relationship, for your sake as much as for hers or your potential future families. If you can do that, then you don't have to latch on to the first girl that shows interest in you. You can be selective. In order to be selective, you do have to have a few things going for you. The reality is, young women in their 20s, if they're dating young men in their 20s or younger, they know you're not going to be established in a career yet. They're not expecting that, but they do want to know that you're going to potentially be moving towards something for down the road. If they're a high-value woman looking for a long-term relationship. Now, if they are just looking for a man with money, they're probably a gold digger or have some emotional damage or just super selfish. Is that the kind of woman you want to settle down with? I think not. But if she's not a gold digger, then she is going to want to see that one day you'll be able to provide for, or at least contribute to, a family. Now, even if she is a feminist and plans on continuing to work or even out earning you, which is not uncommon today, worthy women, the women you're going to find worthy, that you find highly desirable, are not going to want to settle down with a man who is financially or career irresponsible. And it doesn't matter if you change paths down the road, as long as you're working towards something. A lot of times when you're very young, you don't know for certain that the path you're treading down is going to be the final path. You're exploring, but at least you're moving towards something. Okay, now number 2, and this might be the bigger reason why I believe young men in their 20s shouldn't be too hasty in settling down. 2, you can't make a woman who's not ready to settle down. Because of the women's sexual liberation movement, there are a lot of young women who want to sow their wild oats before settling down. This means just because she sleeps with you doesn't mean she's actually interested in a relationship with you. There are actually quite a few women out there who are just trying to knock off the ice cream flavors. Now, for y'all fellows who are like, awesome, I don't want to settle down, I just want to bump and dump. Well, you'll find there are plenty of women out there who will want to do that because they're just as much into it as you are. But if you're interested in settling down, those aren't the women who you're going to find worthy of settling down with. And they don't want to anyway. Even a Chad can't lock her down if she hasn't tasted enough flavors of the rainbow. In fact, if her social group encourages promiscuity, she may feel like she's got a quota to make before she ever thinks about settling down in a relationship. That could take years. Now, the downside to Hoville, in other words, the reason why Hoville for women isn't actually such a great thing for men who just want to get something, is because when you are into the hit it and quit it mentality, you develop different skills. You develop pickup artist skills. They don't translate well to women who actually are worthy of settling down with. So then when you think you are ready to settle down, you keep going for the ones that are easy to pick up, and they're not high value women if they are still easy to pick up. Sorry, ladies, truth. But then you become jaded towards all women, assuming all women are like those in Hoville. And yes, I acknowledge finding a worthy woman to settle down with, especially when you're younger, is definitely like finding a needle in a haystack these days. But they do exist. And of course, that means there's a hell of a lot of competition for them. Which brings us back to number 1. The real keepers want a man who has a clear path of where he wants to be in 5, 10, 15 years and is actively working toward that goal. That's the kind of man she sees as high value. And if she can catch him, catch you, now, then she'll be able to grow with you along the path. But of course, purpose and career isn't the only metric high-value women consider when looking for a man. And no, it's not six-pack abs, six-figure income, or 6 feet tall. Surprise, surprise. There are other things she does need, though. Now, if you want a little help figuring out what your plan is, what things to focus on to improve for immediate effect with women, my step-by-step, what to do first, what to do next, Wake Up to Love program will help you figure that out. It's been available long enough that I'm getting positive feedback from men who've done the program and have found their dream girl and who are getting married. Now, you don't have to get married. That's up to you. But even if you just want a great girlfriend by your side to join you on that journey of what to do next, then my program will help you. If you do the work. Because otherwise, nothing changes if nothing changes. Nothing changes if you don't change. Thanks for being here. God bless.